guys, how's it going? So this is our weekly recap video where I take all of last week's videos that we posted and I gather up some of the most commonly asked questions and answer them for you. So this is the second time we have filmed this type of video. Last Monday was our first and you guys seemed overwhelmingly positive about this sort of video. I'm hoping it was helpful for you guys because I know if, a handful of people are asking the question, there's probably a whole bunch more people who want to know the answer or have wondered that and just have never voiced it before. So let's just get right into the videos. First one was how I fertilize in fall. There were a number of questions asking what kind of hosta was in the background in the container behind me. And it's called Shadowland Wee. So W-H-E-E-E exclamation point. It's a hosta from Proven Winners. I planted underneath a Japanese maple in that container like 3 years ago, and they come back without fail. They're really ruffly leaves that are variegated, and they grow 18 inches tall and like upper 20s inches wide, maybe up to 30 inches wide. And it's just been a phenomenal hosta. Next question. It's kind of a tacky question, but I was wondering how much you spend on your garden. I don't necessarily think that's a tacky question. I think that's a common question. I think a lot of people wonder that. And it's a tough one for me because I honestly don't know how much we spend. I know it's a lot. In the very beginning, when we started our YouTube channel, we made no money. We lost money. We were putting so much into what we were doing and we just kept going with it. I'm not really sure what kept us going in the beginning, but we were just funding our own projects and having a really good time. And eventually, as we have grown, our income has grown. We're blessed to be able to do videos, make videos from home for you guys. But I know that most of our budget goes right back into making videos because in the beginning we were doing 1 video a week. Now we do 5 to 7 videos. So it definitely costs more to do 7 projects a week than it does to do 1 project a week. And I hope that our channel doesn't make you feel like you need to go out and do all of these things because our videos are certainly not paint by number. I just hope you guys are able to be inspired and just take maybe a little tidbit from each video and maybe apply it on whatever scale that you guys are doing in the garden. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but all that to say, we do spend a lot out on our garden and on our home, and that's where the majority of our budget goes. We don't go on big vacations. I don't buy a lot of clothes. This is our hobby, and this is where we pour most of our income. Next is, if you don't have a big garden, can you use Biotone for all of your fertilizer? Containers, a few bulbs, a couple of small beds, or is it important to have all the different kinds? I would say that I would use Biotone just as your starter fertilizer. It has things in it, and we've done a video specifically about Biotone and why it's good, why it works as a starter fertilizer. We'll link that down below. So I would use that on everything brand new that you're planting. And then if you don't want to, store and have every single different type of fertilizer, I would go with Plant Tone. It's a really good, just general fertilizer that you can feed everything else after you do your first, starter fertilizer when you plant your plant. What kind of grass do you have? So we have a mix of Kentucky bluegrass and perennial rye. How do you fertilize after you remove annuals? Do you do something to prep the soil for next year? I usually don't, other than mulching. We do like to, after we, kind of tear up an area and, tear up plants, I like to just rake it smooth, put a nice layer of mulch over the top. Unless I'm planting something new, like a fall annual or something, I will add Biotone to the soil, but in general, I just mulch. And the last thing I did want to mention about the fall fertilizing is I did talk about fertilizing roses and not to fertilize them in the fall. I wanted to mention that the Rose Tone bag, I think, recommends feeding roses monthly from April through August, I think, and I personally don't usually fertilize them after July. So I usually do a spring feed early on, and then I do one right after their first flush of bloom. So I just wanted to mention that just in case there was any confusion versus what I said versus what the bag says. The next video was decorating for fall, where I decked out one of our patios with all the festive fall things. Overwhelmingly, the comments were about Benjamin because he was with me for the tour in the end where we went through everything, and he was being such a good boy. He loved to mess with the squash, but there was one part right in the beginning where I pick him up and he's just kind of staring at the camera deadpan, letting water just dribble out of his mouth. Of course, I didn't realize it then or later. It took somebody saying it in the comment section, and I went back and watched, and for sure he was sitting there just dribbling water out, but he was pretty darn cute. Next, Laura, what sandals are those? I get that question a lot, and those are from Famous Footwear. They're like a knockoff Birkenstock brand. I've tried multiple different types of Birkenstocks and they just look so wide. So this is some kind of, I think the word mountain is in it. is it White Mountain? Is that a sandal brand, Erin? White Mountain sandals, is that right? Yeah, White Mountain is the brand, and Famous Footwear here in Ontario carries that, like a couple different styles from that line, and I've bought 2 different styles and they're really comfortable, but I've worn through both pair of sandals this summer, so that'll tell you how long they last. Next comment, that's nice and all, but then there are birds' nests and spiders make webs, not worth it. It's always worth it to me. I mean, I get spider webs too, but I just kind of keep on a weekly, I'll go out there with a broom once a week and knock down the spider webs. It's really not that hard to keep up on something like that. And it makes a house a home. It makes it cozy and fun. And I want to create really wonderful memories for Benjamin. So I just wanted to say that, you know, I know that it's an issue with, you know, insects and webs and stuff like that. But for me personally, it's always worth the effort. Next one is to give an update on Russell and Cheddar the cats. So I decided to answer this question just because I have noticed a lot of questions about Cheddar because he is a new addition this year. He just showed up. I was out watering in the greenhouse one day and heard this sweet little meow, and there he was. So I gave him some pets. He followed me around, and it was kind of history from there. We started feeding him. He comes inside now. He has his favorite napping spots. He and Russell get along pretty well. They'll have like a little tiff here and there, but most of the time they're laying nearby each other. Anyway, it's been a really seamless transition. Like, I prefer adopting pets that way, just to have them show up. It feels kind of like a natural thing. And the very last question on this particular video I wanted to address was, when using so many plants, you're smothering the roots on some and wasting flowers. I think that a lot of people wonder that or have commented that, so I thought I would address it again. Usually in every video I do of container planting in either spring or fall, I talk about how you can fudge the lines in terms of giving things enough space to grow, because in spring and fall, they're really not putting on a lot of growth. The only containers I want to make sure to leave space in are my summer planted ones, because those plants get huge. They need a lot of room to grow. The season is a lot longer, but like in the fall, I put stuff in the ground and it just sits there because there's not enough heat to create a lot of growth. They might put on a little bit, but not a lot. So most of the time, all of my fall planters do perfectly fine, even when I'm putting things in close together. Okay, our next video is the end of season garden tour, which was a long one. It was almost an hour long. First question was about the Supertunia Vista snowdrift on the west side. Erin convinced you to use less plants, and they did grow in perfectly. I'm curious though, how much slower did it fill in for you? Was it worth using less plants and having less instant impact to save on how many you needed? In this case, I think it was the perfect amount of plants. When I initially planted them, I thought, oh my word, there's not enough plants in here. This looks weird, you know, when you compare it to how I usually plant things. But when you're dealing with a Supertunia Vista in particular, they grow fast. Like, they had filled in just in a matter of a few weeks. They need to sit there like for about a week. They kind of look the same, and you're starting to fertilize them, and then they just start to like grow crazy. So we only put 6 around each one of those trees. And if I did Supertunia Vistas again there, I would only use 6. Next is about the tree hydrangeas planted near the pallet walkway. They flank our pergola back there. Question was, what kind are they? Those are Pinky Winky Hydrangea Standards, or tree form, and they're just blooming beautifully right now. Whatever happened to the Krakozmias? So the Krakozmia was kind of a failure for me. I planted, I can't even remember how many bulbs in a raised bed behind our greenhouse this spring, and only 3 came up. And so the company that actually sent the bulbs out, they contacted me and asked, like, how are your Krakozmias doing? Did they come up? And I said, no, just like 3 of them did. And they said that there was actually a crop failure with those specific bulbs. They'd had an issue. So I was glad to know it wasn't just me. I mean, it was the first time I have ever planted that type of bulb. So I didn't know. I thought maybe I had done something wrong. So I was happy to know that. But don't use that as ammunition at your local garden center when something doesn't go right in your yard. It's not a crop failure. It doesn't happen that often. It's kind of a rare thing to happen, and usually it's on kind of a bigger scale. So like that whole crop of Krakozmias, just something was wrong with them. So anyway, that's what happened. The 3 that did come up did bloom, and they were really pretty. Will you still upload every day during the autumn and winter? We're gonna give it our best shot. We do shoot for a video every single day, like that's our goal, but we usually land somewhere between 5 and 7. Like, there might be a day where we skip, and it's just because like our schedule was way too busy the week prior, or maybe like one of us wasn't feeling well, and so we kind of missed a day. When you are doing a video every day, it's a lot of work. Yeah. Sometimes it's easy, and sometimes you'll have a day where you get a couple of videos done and you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm a little bit ahead of the game. And then some days, like, everything goes wrong and it takes forever to get one project done. So anyway, we are going to try. The back area where the fence was broken seems to be screaming in an in-ground pool to me. That was a super common comment about that back area. I love pools. I mean, I think they're beautiful. I would love to have one if I didn't have to maintain it. My parents have an in-ground pool and it's gorgeous, and I think that's good enough for me. I think whenever we want to use a pool, we can run out there and use it, and then I don't have to maintain it here at home. They do an immaculate job. Like, I think my mom actually enjoys going out there and maintaining it, like testing the water levels and skimming off all the junk that's blown in. I don't think I would enjoy that as much. Something I've been asking myself for a while now, do you still have bees? No, I do not have honeybees. So I did that year before last. I set up my hive here and tried to do bees again, and they absconded again, which means the entire population of bees just up and left. So they either didn't like their situation, the queen may have died. I didn't see any dead bees. I mean, like a couple of dead bees, which is kind of normal. But I didn't see that there was any mites. I didn't see any kind of issues. So they just up and left. I don't know what happened. I may try it again in the future, but I don't really have plans to do it right now. When you buy seeds now for next year, how do you store them? So I got this galvanized seed saver kit thing from Gardener Supply. I think I need to get like maybe a couple more because they're, you know, they're kind of smallish, but they're really nice. They keep everything really organized, but I think I need one for vegetables, one for flowers, and one for herbs because I'm starting to overflow mine right now. Next video was a fun landscape project at our church where we took some really pretty plants and planted them right in a new flower bed that they created at the entrance of the church. First question was if there was a place that I recommend somebody to go to find what plant species are invasive in their specific area. I think that kind of came from when I talked about the barberries. I think barberries are like an invasive species in a lot of different states. They're not in Oregon. How do I know what I'm not allowed to plant? So here's what I would do. I would probably Google it first. That's what I normally do. And then visit with somebody at your local extension office or your local garden center. You'll probably be able to find out real quick from one of those two places. Laura, confess, how hard was it for you to plant only 16 plants in all that space? You would think it would be hard, but it actually wasn't that hard. It was kind of liberating. It looks like very open and like there's room to breathe. There's room for all of these plants to grow to their full maturity. And when I'm planting for somebody else, I would never plant the way I plant at home because the way I plant creates maintenance. The way that that's planted will be incredibly low maintenance. So I always kind of keep that in mind. I am gonna add, however, I think this afternoon, the 3 grasses. I did pick those up. I talked about that, how we were gonna add some grass texture and some bulbs. So we'll go take care of that maybe today or tomorrow, and then that whole area will be done. Did you amend the soil before you planted anything other than your biotone? No, we did not. Usually we just do biotone and that's it. Does this variety of barberry have thorns? Yes, that was a Sunjoy Mini Maroon, I think was the name of that one. And I don't know that there's a barberry without thorns. Next video was the DIY walnut wreath, and there were a lot of the same questions asked. First off, the squirrels in my area will love this. That was a very common theme. I have never had squirrels try to steal walnuts, and we have squirrels. My parents, like the wreaths that I was displaying on our door that are my mom's, she's had them for like 10 years, and they have lots of wildlife out in the country and not once have had an animal try to steal them. So I don't know, maybe we have like well-behaved squirrels? That would be a very expensive wreath unless you have a walnut tree in your backyard. Well, certainly it'd be cheaper if you had a walnut tree in your backyard, but it really is not that expensive of a wreath. If you were to go into a craft store and buy a wreath already pre-made, they run anywhere from like $30 for the smaller ones all the way up to $100. So I estimated it costing between about $35 and $40 to construct this wreath with the wreath form, walnuts, and hot glue. I guess I didn't include the wreath hanger. I mean, add a couple of dollars for that. But it's really not that much for when you consider like buying another wreath that's already pre-done, and you get years and years and years out of it. There was a really great tip. So Linda said that if you find that you end up with a lot of glue spider strings, you know, all the glue strands that are left from hot glue, just use a hairdryer and poof, the strings disappear. I didn't know about this. I'm gonna try it. It might be easier to wrap your wreath first with burlap ribbon The background blends into the nuts and it would give the nuts better grip instead of hoping to hit a couple of the vines here and there. That is like a good suggestion. However, with those walnuts, you can see like quite a bit of the wreath form. I think if it was a lighter colored burlap, it would shine through and it would almost make the contrast. You wouldn't see the nuts, especially when the nuts are fresher, they're lighter color. So I think that having the wreath form just plain in the background gives you a little more depth and contrast. But I mean, the nuts would probably be easier to stick to the burlap for sure. So there was questions about how my mom's wreaths do look darker, and hers are about 10 years old, so age really plays a huge factor into that. Also, you hung it in the chicken coop that no longer gets shade because of the tree being removed, so won't the glue melt being in that spot? Will the wreath be staying there, or was it just for the video? And at first it was just for the video, but now I kind of like it right there, so I've left it. It's sitting there. It's not very hot out though. It's pretty cool. So even if it gets sun in the afternoon, it's like only getting to the low 60s, I think, at this point. I don't think the glue will melt at all. I mean, I'll watch it, but I'm going to make 2 more wreaths for our patio doors. I've already given my mom's back, so I need to get on it and get that project done. But I know that was kind of confusing because if I had that wreath out during the summertime, that glue would melt in a second. Which brings me to, there were quite a few of you who suggested using like an E6000 or a Gorilla Glue in conjunction with my hot glue. That way the hot glue would make it adhere quickly, stick quickly, but then that other glue would be there to kind of help it stick on during heat or cold, which is a good thought. And it's something that I may try on the next 2 that I make. And the very last thing I did see was some people said, well, why don't we just have the walnuts, eat the walnuts, and then use just the halves? I tried that. It does not look as good. Having the full walnuts gives it so much more of a full, like, uniform appearance somehow, and it's a lot harder to attach walnut halves when you only have the surface area around the outside to put glue on. It's much more messy and just not as pretty. Okay, last video was bringing in houseplants plus a plant room tour. How do you not have hordes of bugs in your home? I can't bring anything inside without being attacked for months afterwards. So in that video, I did haul an insecticide around with me. As I was checking my plants, I was checking for bugs to see if I had anything going on. You can preventatively spray your plants before you bring them in, which if you typically have a problem with bugs, I would definitely recommend doing that. I didn't notice anything on mine, so I didn't spray them, especially the citrus because they have fruit on them and I don't really want to spray them when they have fruit. So I just keep a really close eye on them. It's also a good idea to scrape off the top like inch or so at least of soil because a lot of insect eggs like hang out in there and that's where a lot of them come from. So if you can eliminate some of the population right away and put fresh stuff on the top, I think you're better off. Where is your Fiddle Leaf Fig? So that one's actually in the great room in front of a huge window that gets morning sun, and it's kind of a funny shape. So it started off with like 3 like stems up top that were really full. 2 of them pretty much look the same. They've maybe put on a couple of new leaves, and then one of them is huge and has like doubled its size, and I haven't trimmed it at all. I might do that in a video here soon, but it's looking healthy and doing really well. Can you please do a video on the grow lights you use? So we've done several videos on those. I'll try to find the links to those and put them in the description down below. And the last question is, are the light systems on 24/7 or on a schedule? So I don't have the lights going all the time. They are on timers that turn on in the morning and turn off again in the evening, so I don't have to go up there every single day twice and turn them on and off, but they run for about 16 hours and they keep my plants really happy. So that's it, you guys. Those were the most commonly asked questions from this past week's videos. I hope it was helpful to hear some answers. I want to encourage you, if you have questions, make sure to leave a comment. I'm pulling most of these questions from YouTube, so make sure you're subscribed there. Leave your comment down below. If you see somebody else asking that question, you can also like theirs, and that helps kick things to the top so that we make sure to see them. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a great week. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.